Chapter 232. What happened? Looking at the girl begging for help outside the door, Ning Chu Shui remained vigilant. Wen Fei bit her lip hard, her face pale. 2 people died today, right? We wanted to take this chance to thoroughly investigate the apartment, but the Jadefield apartments are basically an empty building. We checked all the other rooms. Doors were locked. Han Chong broke down a few doors, went inside but found nothing. So we went to room 404. Ning Chu Shui narrowed her eyes. You're bold, daring to enter every room. Wen Fei closed her eyes in anguish. We didn't want to, but we had no choice. 3 people are dead now. We've gathered a lot of clues, but they all lead to dead ends. We can't move forward. At the time, Han Chong thought we had to get into room 404. That room must hold something special. Why else would the previous owner have specifically warned us about it? Han Chong believed he could find a crucial clue inside. I stood guard at the door for him. If there was any sound, I would warn him immediately. But the moment he stepped inside, he screamed in terror. I rushed to push the door open, but Han Chong was gone. Wen Fei and Han Chong shared a very special bond. Her voice carried genuine panic. Ning Chu Shui glanced out the door. Besides the 3 dead and the 4 of us, there are 5 others. Why come to us? Wen Fei's face turned ashen. You're the only ones left, the only ones who can help me. I just went to knock on the others' doors. The moment they heard Han Chong had entered room 404, they slammed their doors in my face like they'd seen a rat. No matter how much I knocked, it was useless. I had no other choice. She gritted her teeth as if making a grave decision. I know you have no obligation to risk your lives for us. If even you won't help, then I'll go find him myself. Ning Chu Shui leaned out to check both ends of the hallway. Confirming no one was there, she pulled Wen Fei inside the room. If nothing unexpected happens, he won't die immediately. Room 404 is very special. Once you enter, you might not be able to come back. After a preliminary check, they confirmed Wen Fei's mental state was stable. Only then did they feel comfortable discussing the issue of the 2 timelines with her. So, you mean Han Chong, after stepping through that door, went back to the Jadefield apartments of over 20 years ago? Processing the speculation from Ning Chu Shui and Bai Xiao, Wen Fei was stunned. Theoretically, yes. Hearing this, Wen Fei thought for a moment, then asked, Then, if he just re-enters room 404 from that timeline, can he return to the present? Ning Chu Shui and Bai Xiao both fell silent. Perhaps it's not that simple. If nothing unexpected happened, the time he returned to was also in room 404. After a pause, Ning Chu Shui voiced a speculation that made Wen Fei's face turn pale. And if nothing unexpected happened, the killer is likely in that very room. Whether Han Chong survives or not depends on his ability to adapt. If he knows how to act and can fool them, then at least he won't die today. But that's only buying time. Wen Fei clenched her fists, asking uncertainly, Is there any way to save him quickly? Ning Chu Shui thought for a moment. Frankly speaking, I wouldn't enter room 404 unless absolutely necessary. That place is extremely dangerous. Going in recklessly is no different from seeking death. But there is one way that could also save Han Chong. Wen Fei's eyes lit up. What way? Ning Chu Shui looked straight at her, not revealing the method immediately. You 2 are lovers, right? If I help you save your lover, what will you give me in return? Wen Fei was stunned, but quickly calmed down. That's right, they weren't from the same ghost dwelling, nor were they friends. The other party had no obligation to help them. She seemed to have something to say, but hesitated for a long time before gritting her teeth and speaking. I can trade with you using something very important. Ning Chu Shui raised an eyebrow. Something very important. How important is it? Wen Fei tightened her chubby fists, her throat dry. Have you heard of the letter? Ning Chu Shui's eyelids twitched slightly. Letter? Seeing that Ning Chu Shui seemed not to believe her, Wen Fei grew a bit anxious. Everything I'm saying is true. The reason I haven't used it is because the letter is extremely precious. Brother Chong told me to save it for the 7th Crimson Door. Ning Chu Shui stared at her for a long time, his gaze sharp. How can I trust you? What if you change your mind later? Wen Fei grew a little flustered. She searched herself all over, then suddenly remembered something. She ran back to her room and returned a moment later, handing Ningqiu Shui an ID card. "This is my ID card. Do you believe me now? If I lie to you, you can come find me directly." Ningqiu Shui took the ID card she offered and examined it closely. "All right, I'll trust you for now." Upon hearing this, Wenfei quickly asked, "Then what do we need to do to save him? Going directly into room 404 is truly too dangerous. If we barge in recklessly, not only will we fail to save him, but we'll very likely lose ourselves as well. We need to think of a way to find someone to help." As soon as Ningqiu Shui finished speaking, Bai Xiaoxiao knew what he was planning. "Find who?" Wenfei asked. "Wang Feng." The moment Ningqiu Shui said this, Wenfei was frozen on the spot. Bai Xiaoxiao, on the other hand, tilted her head, curiosity filling her eyes. "Qu Shui, how do you plan to contact Wang Feng?" The reason Wang Feng had been able to find Ningqiu Shui was because she knew how to enter the future 20 years later. But if Ningqiu Shui wanted to return to the past, it seemed the only way was through room 404. The future apparently could not directly exert physical influence over the past. If Wang Feng in the past changed a lock, the lock on the door in the future would also change. However, if Ningqiu Shui used a similar method to destroy an object in the future, it might leave behind. Because time is a one-way flow, only streaming from the past to the future. No matter what Ningqiu Shui did physically, Wang Feng in the past would never perceive it. Of course, all of the above theories were based on one scenario, that these two time spaces truly existed objectively under the influence of the Crimson Door. But Ningqiu Shui believed that these two time spaces might not be real at all. The existence of Wang Feng has broken the rule of time's one-way flow. Of course, that includes myself. Earlier, when I returned to the past, the others treated me like air, completely ignoring my existence. But Wang Feng noticed me and could even communicate with me normally. Moreover, Wang Feng in the past and the future, her appearance hasn't changed at all. Locks can rust, and people should age too. At first I thought Wang Feng was the problem. But after Xiao Xiao proposed the idea of the unidirectionality of time, I changed my mind. It's not that Wang Feng is the problem. It's that these two time spaces are the problem. At least one of these time spaces is fake, created by some force. Only then could Wang Feng and I interact without violating the rule of the unidirectionality of time. And the peculiarity of Wang Feng also hints that she is the key to the emergence of the fake time space. Wenfei, who originally didn't have as much information as Ningqiu Shui and Bai Xiaoxiao, now listened to Ningqiu Shui's words without any expression, only feeling her mind spinning, dizzy. "What are you talking about?" Wenfei asked blankly. "Isn't Wang Feng our landlady?" No one paid her any attention. Bai Xiaoxiao reached out and touched his smooth chin, lost in thought. The rules of time cannot produce paradoxes. If one of the time spaces in Yutian apartment is fake, created by some mysterious force, then many things can be explained logically. Ningqiu Shui pulled out the rusted lock from his person, his gaze sharp. It seems room 404 has connected the past and the future. That is, it connects the illusory and the reality. If that's the case, finding Wang Feng will be much easier. Bai Xiaoxiao lifted his eyes, his gaze like drifting clouds. "How do you know which time space among the two timelines of past and future is real?" Ningqiu Shui smiled and said, "Real or fake doesn't matter, for the matter of us finding Wang Feng. That's not important at all. Do you still remember what Wang Feng said to us on our first day here?" Bai Xiaoxiao immediately recalled, her eyes glistening as she parted her lips. "I'm in room 210. If you have any urgent matters and need help, you can come find me." So that's what she meant. Ningqiu Shui tightened his grip on the old key. "Let's go to room 210. The thickest part of the fog has passed. Next, the mist will begin to lift." Bai Xiaoxiao nodded and followed Ningqiu Shui to room 210. Wenfei, though unaware of what they were discussing, trailed behind them. The three arrived at room 210. Ningqiu Shui took out the key, but instead of opening the door immediately, he knocked first. Knock, knock, knock. No answer. Ningqiu Shui inserted the key into the lock and turned it gently. The door opened, but in that instant, his vision blurred. In the blink of an eye, he was clear-headed again. The dilapidated room before him had transformed into a tidy, clean space. Wang Feng's plump figure appeared in front of Ning Shui. "Is there something you need from me?" The familiar words. Ning Shui stared intently at Wang Feng's face, his eyes shimmering. "Yes, there is. I have a friend who entered room 404. Upon hearing this, Wang Feng's expression immediately turned cold. "That place is not under my jurisdiction." Ning Shui didn't give up, stepping forward. "Aren't you the landlady here? In this place, you're the one in charge." Wang Feng remained silent for a long time. No one is allowed into that room except he or she is in there. Ning Shui seemed to already have an answer in his heart, but he still asked, "Who is he or she?" Wang Feng narrowed her eyes, her tone still icy. "I don't know. I want to know too." Ning Shui smiled. This answer was exactly what he had expected. "Have you ever been inside room 404? Ning Shui looked directly into Wang Feng's eyes, repeating the question. But this time, Wang Feng didn't answer immediately. She just stared back at him. After a long pause, Wang Feng finally spoke. "I have been there." "Have been?" "Yes." Hearing Wang Feng's answer, Ning Shui became even more certain that his speculation was correct. "Let's talk about my friend. If you can help rescue him, perhaps I can help you catch it." Wang Feng said nothing, seemingly lost in thought. Ning Shui noticed her expression softening slightly, and continued, "You sought us out, left that photograph in room 210. Wasn't it be hoped we would help you?" Wang Feng's voice was no longer as cold as before, but her eyes had turned slightly red. It was that kind of bloodshot red, caused by tiny capillaries spreading across the surface. Those eyes looked somewhat familiar. "Only you can take him away. But if you want to take him, you must enter room 404. Ning Shui asked, "What happens after I enter room 404? Wang Feng stood up and handed a photograph to Ning Shui. "It will see you. It will remember you. It will kill you." This photograph was the very same one Ning Shui had found earlier in room 210. The man in the white coat and the woman in the loose patient uniform. The only difference was that in this photo, both of them were vividly alive, as if they were about to come to life. Moreover, Ning Shui could feel a thick, malevolent aura emanating from the photograph. It was as if something was coldly staring at him from behind the image. This sensation of being watched was deeply unsettling. "Can I see it in the real world?" Ning Shui asked, tearing his gaze away from the photo. Wang Feng put the photograph away, her voice heavy. "It is always there. Now, are you sure you want to continue saving your friend?" Ning Shui smiled. "I want to give it a try." Wang Feng looked deeply at Ning Shui and gave a slight nod. "Come, follow me." Wang Feng led him up to the 4th floor. At this moment, the 4th floor of Yutian apartment no longer had the dilapidated feel of a different time-space, but the gloomy, eerie sensation had not diminished in the slightest. Even in broad daylight, Ning Shui could clearly feel an unshakable chill clinging to his body. The moment he stepped onto the 4th floor, his body had a distinct reaction. Goosebumps. On the walls were strange drawings and curses written in chalk. The handwriting was twisted and distorted. Arriving before the door of room 404, Wang Feng stood to one side, her voice filled with extreme caution. "Your friend is inside." Ning Shui looked at the room 404 number plate, clearly sensing the thick malevolence emanating from within. Having frequently dealt with the evil spirits behind the crimson door, Ning Shui knew full well that this was absolutely not the malice of a human. A person's malice could never reach this level. This meant that inside room 404, there was at least one thing that was not human. Should he enter? Ning Shui did not recklessly open the door and walk in. Instead, he pressed his ear against the door, listening to the sounds inside. Ah! There were no footsteps in the room, but there was the pained groaning of a man. Ning Shui was very familiar with this voice. It was Han Chong. He seemed to be undergoing some kind of torture inside room 404, his voice filled with agony. Occasionally, Ning Shui could even hear the sound of fingernails scraping fiercely against the floor, creating a horrifying, grating noise. "You're scared, aren't you?" Wang Feng stood beside Ning Shui, arms crossed, her voice laced with mockery. Ning Shui did not get angry at this. Instead, she looked at her and replied softly, It's only natural for me to be afraid. After all, I don't belong here. Everything in this place is full of surprises and danger. Fear is a creature's survival instinct. But your fear, I find that hard to understand. You are the landlord here. They are the tenants. If you are unhappy, you can simply kick them out. So what are you afraid of? Wang Feng's face instantly darkened. Her complexion was already very pale, but now, combined with the murderous intent in her eyes, it made Ning Shui feel an invisible danger. Clearly, Wang Feng also had the ability to kill him, but she didn't strike. After a moment, Wang Feng retracted her sharp gaze. I told you, I am indeed the landlord of this Yutian apartment. All the rooms are under my management, except for 404. Ning Shui said, Is it because room 404 is the starting point of this Yutian apartment? Did room 404 come first, and then this Yutian apartment building was built? Wang Feng hesitated for a moment, as if she didn't quite understand Ning Shui's words. She nodded slightly, then shook her head. It has nothing to do with room 404 itself. It has to do with the person inside. You'll know once you go in. Ning Shui was silent for a while, but in the end, she still knocked on the door of room 404.
Knock, knock, knock!
As soon as Ning Shui knocked, the door quickly swung open. A man in a white coat, expressionless and with a pale complexion, appeared at the door. Seeing this man, Ning Shui tightened her grip on the red scissors hidden behind her back. Who are you looking for? The man frowned, seemingly very unhappy about being disturbed by Ning Shui. He replied, I have a friend who came in here earlier. Sorry for the disturbance, but I want to take him away. The man in the white coat stared at Ning Shui. There is no friend of yours in this room. With that, he tried to close the door, but Ning Shui was faster, using her foot to block the corner of the door. Sorry, but I have to take him away. Ning Shui's voice was very firm. The man in the white coat tried to force the door shut, but Ning Shui was much stronger than him. This is my private residence. Without my permission, you cannot enter. The man insisted. Ning Shui nodded slightly. You can choose to call the police.
Swoosh!
Hearing the words call the police, the expression of the man in the white coat changed drastically. He suddenly reached out with a pale hand and grabbed Ning Shui's neck. But he made no further move, because the red scissors in Ning Shui's hand were now pressed against his throat. This man seemed very nervous, occasionally glancing inside the room. After a long while, he let go. Wait for me here. With that, he turned and walked back into the room. For some reason, this room always felt as if it were shrouded by something, like being separated by a pane of frosted glass. Even standing at the door, Ning Shui could not see clearly what was inside. After the man entered the room, a chaotic commotion immediately erupted inside. What was he doing in there? It took about 5 minutes, before the man finally dragged a burly, blood-soaked figure to the door. Take him away now. The man's voice was icy cold. Then, with a single kick, he shoved the burly man out of the room and slammed the door shut. The door closed. Wang Feng walked a short distance away before turning back. Go back to room 210. You two will return to your previous positions. Ning Shui watched Wang Feng's retreating figure gradually disappear, then suddenly called out, Don't you have anything to say to me? Wang Feng stopped. She stood at the stairwell on the 4th floor, turning her head to look at Ning Shui. I don't want to waste time with a dead man. Come talk to me when you're still alive. With that, she descended the stairs. Ning Shui looked at the burly, blood-soaked man on the ground. He had no idea what terrifying thing the man had encountered in room 404, but his entire body was trembling violently. He hurriedly helped the man up, dragging him back toward room 210. As they stepped into that room once more, they returned to their own time and space. Everything around them was in ruins, covered in dust. Bai Xiaoxiao and Wen Fei were still waiting for them in the room, their faces full of worry. Seeing Ning Shui and Han Chong reappear, they finally breathed a sigh of relief and rushed over. Brother Chong, what happened to you? How did you end up like this? Wen Fei's voice was hoarse. She hugged the blood-soaked Han Chong on the ground, tears welling in her eyes. How long was I gone? Ning Shui asked Bai Xiaoxiao. She glanced at her phone. 7 hours. Ning Shui was stunned. She quickly walked to the window and pulled open the curtain. Outside, the sky had already darkened. How did it take so long? Was it the influence of the mysterious force in room 404? It was now dusk, or more precisely, almost nightfall. Wenfei, give me a hand. Let's get him to the 7th floor first. It's not safe here. Wenfei nodded. Together with Ningqiu Shui, they helped Han Chong up and returned to their room 702. After laying Han Chong down, Ningqiu Shui carefully examined the wounds on his body. They were all superficial injuries. Severe, yes, but not life-threatening for now. Was it the murderer? What did it want to do? Bai Xiaoxiao asked, her expression grim. The murderer wanted to flay him alive, Ningqiu Shui said, examining the wounds on Han Chong's body more closely. He had experience with human anatomy. Knowledge of the human body was essential for people in their line of work. Ningqiu Shui carefully inspected the wounds again, speaking slowly. The cuts are all vertical, severing the muscle fibers. The murderer wasn't slashing randomly. Every cut was deliberate. Furthermore, this method of using the blade is known to many people. Hearing this, Wenfei was slightly startled. Many people know this? Ningqiu Shui stood up and sat down on the sofa, uttering a sentence that sent chills down Wenfei's spine. Butchers use this knife technique when trimming pork. If nothing unexpected happens, Han Chong has been treated by the killer in room 404 as food. Having said that, he glanced at his watch. I'm afraid the killer has already prepared the seasonings. After midnight tonight, Han Chong will very likely be eaten alive, like skewered meat. Wenfei trembled all over upon hearing this. The killer also eats human flesh? As if guessing what Wenfei was thinking, Ningqiu Shui narrowed his eyes and said, Who told him to build such a muscular body? He looks very appetizing. Appetizing? Wenfei looked up at Ningqiu Shui, thinking this man seemed off, a hint of fear in her eyes. By the way, he was in room 404 for so long. He must have seen something, right? That place must have very important clues, Bai Xiaoxiao said. The three of them focused their attention on Han Chong. His eyes were vacant, as if he still hadn't recovered from the shock. They questioned him for a long time, but he said nothing, seemingly oblivious to their questions. Wenfei grew worried, knelt beside him, and gently comforted Han Chong. It was a long while before Han Chong finally came to his senses, his pale face covered in cold sweat. It's it! I found the killer! Han Chong's eyes were bloodshot, his hands gripping Ningqiu Shui's arms tightly, as if he knew Ningqiu Shui had saved him and brought him back. He kept repeating this sentence. Ningqiu Shui gently patted his arm to calm him down. Don't rush. You're safe for now. Xiaoxiao, go keep watch at the door. Bai Xiaoxiao nodded. It was clear Ningqiu Shui was worried someone might be eavesdropping outside. Bai Xiaoxiao walked to the door, peered down the dark hallway on both sides, confirmed no one was there, and then turned back to give Ningqiu Shui an okay sign. Tell us, what did you find in room 404? Ningqiu Shui asked. Han Chong's body shook violently. The mere mention of room 404 seemed to awaken a deep-seated fear within him. There were two people in there. The man looked like a doctor, always wearing a white coat. He was saying strange things to that woman, or maybe he was arguing with her. But the content of their argument was very bizarre. I couldn't understand it. Ningqiu Shui's eyes flickered. Do you remember what they were arguing about? Han Chong's breathing grew heavier. It was clear he was struggling to recall what had happened in room 404 earlier, and it was putting immense psychological pressure on him. I don't remember the specifics. It seemed like at first they were arguing about a spider called the Black Widow. Then they argued about obsessive-compulsive disorder and symmetry. Finally, they argued about some drawers in the room being empty. It looked bare and made them uncomfortable. At that time, I was terrified, because in that room, I couldn't control my own body. One of them took over my mind, forced me to pick up a knife and slice my own flesh, piece by piece. And throughout the whole process, none of my ghost artifacts worked. Listening to Han Chong's fragmented description, Bai Xiaoxiao furrowed her brow. How interesting. Everything they described sounds like fairly common mental disorders. It's also exactly what the three deceased on the 7th floor experienced. First, there's identity disorder. But the manifestation of this condition is gender dysphoria, Usually, a man or woman will perceive themselves as the opposite sex. Men, in particular, are the majority. They'll wear heavy makeup, sexy dresses, and stockings, and live and work that way every day. In rare cases, some people imagine themselves to be animals, plants, or insects. Jiang Asi, To, and Ashi Qian must have committed their atrocities because they were suffering from this condition. Though she wasn't a professional psychiatrist, Bai Xiaoxiao had many friends and had encountered these cases in the capital, so she was quite knowledgeable. As for feeling that your own body is asymmetrical, or that other things are asymmetrical, and seeing an empty drawer means you absolutely must fill it, these are all symptoms of obsessive-compulsive disorder. Most people have some level of OCD, but it's very mild. The situations above might just make them feel slightly uncomfortable, without actually affecting their behavior. But Huang Yan was different. Just because she felt her body was asymmetrical, she used a knife to cut away all the flesh from one side of her body. This case falls into the severe category. Bai Xiaoxiao's voice dropped. As she spoke, she looked back at Han Chong. By the way, Han Chong, do you remember who controlled your mind, making you use a knife to cut your own flesh? Han Chong shook his head. I don't know. I can't remember clearly. A lot of the memories related to that room are very hazy. His words plunged the three of them into silence. Room 404 was the closest place to the truth, and also the most dangerous. If even Han Chong, standing inside that room, couldn't see the truth clearly, then how were they supposed to find the killer? What's more terrifying was that death and danger were creeping closer to them step by step. Because they had come into contact with room 404, as soon as midnight passed tonight, Ning Shui and Han Chong would be hunted down by the killer. And this time, the killer would certainly not simply place a murder weapon in their rooms. The incident occurred unexpectedly around 5 in the morning. Ning Shui and Han Chong, who had been expecting the killer to strike at them, were on high alert all night. They were jolted awake by a terrified scream coming from room 704. The killer had struck, but not at them. This left both of them stunned and baffled. Could it be that they weren't the ones closest to the truth? After hesitating for a moment, Ning Shui and Han Chong still walked over to room 704 and knocked on the door. After a tall, gaunt man opened the door, everyone saw his face was deathly pale. This time, all 8 remaining people had gathered together. What happened? Without wasting words, the man gave a slight nod. He stepped aside, letting everyone into the room, then led them to the kitchen door. On the floor, there were bloodstains everywhere. They almost covered every corner of the room. This made everyone shudder involuntarily. The tall, gaunt man took a deep breath, carefully stepping around the bloodstains on the floor, walked to the kitchen cabinets, and opened each drawer one by one. The sight inside nearly stunned everyone present. Inside the empty cabinets were piles of bloody flesh. I woke up and found it like this. The tall, gaunt man pulled out a pack of cigarettes, his lips trembling as he lit one. The cabinets, chests, and boxes in the room, anywhere that was empty. There was definitely his flesh inside. Wenfei stood beside Han Chong, instinctively clutching Han Chong's arm, and asked, "Who is he?" The tall, gaunt man seemed somewhat broken, slumping onto the sofa, exhaling a plume of white smoke from his mouth and nose. Changlan Fei. I don't know much about him. We weren't in the same ghost dwelling. Last night, he suddenly disappeared for a while. I thought he had met with misfortune. But that night, just as I was about to sleep, I suddenly heard a knock on the door. I opened it, and he walked in as if nothing had happened. At the time, he didn't seem strange. But just as he lay down to sleep, he said to me, "Do you feel like the cabinets in our room are empty?" I didn't think much of it at the time. After all, the cabinets in our room really were quite empty. And then I woke up this morning to find this. The tall, gaunt man's name was Kan Long. As everyone listened to Kan Long's account, a chill ran down their spines. Another person had committed suicide. The greatest weapon they relied on, the ghost artifact, had so far been useless inside this crimson door. The killer's method was too bizarre, as if it could hypnotize them invisibly, making it truly hard to guard against. No one knew if they would be the next victim. Changlan Fei only said that one sentence to you when he came back? In the crowd, a woman who looked quite tough furrowed her brow. Qianlong nodded. The tough woman sneered coldly. At a time like this, you're still hiding the truth. If you're going to lie, at least make it consistent. Qianlong was stunned, veins bulging on his neck. Lie? My roommate died mysteriously in my room, and I'm lying? What would I gain from lying? The tough woman's gaze was sharp. Your roommate was missing for so long, and then suddenly came back. I don't believe you didn't ask him anything. Qianlong was taken aback. He was at a loss for words, but the change in his expression clearly showed he had hidden something from everyone. Anyone daring enough to enter the sixth crimson door alone, no matter how foolish, cannot be completely without caution. A roommate who vanished for so long suddenly returns. I don't believe you wouldn't ask a single question. Exposed ruthlessly before everyone by the sharp-tongued woman, Qianlong slowly lifted his head, his gaze thick with malice as he stared her down. Even if I am hiding something, why would I tell you people? Who knows if there's a murderer among you? You're so eager. Could it be that you are the one who killed Changlan Fei? This man, Qianlong, had clearly been harmed by a guest ghost in other doors before. As a result, he was far more wary of the guest ghosts entering the crimson door with him than he was of the monsters lurking behind the door itself. Truth be told, no one present was surprised by Qianlong's behavior anymore. More often than not, the people in the same group were more terrifying than the ghosts. The sharp-tongued woman furrowed her brows, furious at being falsely accused by Qianlong. The two of them erupted into a loud quarrel. Ningqiu Shui, meanwhile, had stepped into the kitchen for a thorough inspection. He finally spoke up. Enough. Stop arguing. Let's get to the point. Hearing him, the two quickly fell silent, though their eyes still promised murder. Mr. Ning, what did you find? Han Chong hurried over. By now, he had placed his full trust in Ningqiu Shui and Bai Xiaoxiao. Whatever the reason, at least they had risked their lives to save him. That alone proved Ningqiu Shui wasn't the murderer. Changlan Fei didn't commit suicide. How do you know? Ningqiu Shui pointed at the bloodstains on the floor. The bloodstains are very natural, no signs of artificial cleaning. Based on the drying level and color, we can reconstruct the victim's actions before death. The victim came to the kitchen last. By the time he arrived here, he had already lost his left leg. Because there's only one bloody footprint on the floor, from the right foot. It matches the size and shape of the foot found in the drawer. He first came to the left side of the kitchen, cut off his remaining right leg, and placed it in the drawer. Then came the head, the arms, and finally, the internal organs. As he spoke, Ningqiu Shui's eyes sharpened. There are two contradictions here. First, without a leg, there are no subsequent footprints, no fingerprints either. How did the victim move? Second, a person without a head dies. After cutting off his own head, how did he complete the remaining actions? The moment Ningqiu Shui finished speaking, the room fell into an eerie silence. Not long after, several pairs of eyes instinctively turned toward Qianlong. Feeling uncomfortable under their gaze, he glared back. Damn it, what are you looking at me for? If you suspect I'm the murderer, call the police. Let them come and arrest me. Wenfei waved her chubby little hand, quickly stepping in to mediate. No one's saying you're the murderer. It's just that, in this situation, you do seem a bit suspicious. Qianlong irritably tossed aside the cigarette in his hand and lit another. Damn it, 3 days, 4 people dead, and not even a trace of the killer. Ghost artifacts are useless too. What's the point of searching anymore? He grumbled, reaching back to scratch the nape of his neck vigorously. It seemed to be a habitual gesture. Bai Xiaoxiao, standing in a corner, noticed the back of his head. A patch of hair was missing, clearly thinning by quite a bit. Obviously, Qianlong had been scratching that spot frequently these past few days. In other words, his nerves were fraying more and more. At this point, I hope everyone can set aside their grudges and work together to find the mastermind behind this. This door is different from most we've experienced. The killer behind it clearly possesses an extremely high level of intelligence. He can even predict what we're thinking, knows how to evade the ghost artifacts in our hands. If this continues, which one of you has the confidence to survive until the end? As he spoke, Ningqiu Shui swept a sharp gaze across the group. Under his stare, the others couldn't help but lower their heads. It was true. So far, the killer seemed to strike completely at random. What's more, they bypassed their ghost artifacts entirely. No matter how powerful a protective ghost artifact they carried, it was now no better than toilet paper. In such a situation, who dared to guarantee they'd make it to the end? No one. The tension in the air gradually eased. Then Ning Chushui turned his gaze back to Kan Long. Kan Long, you said your roommate, Changlan Fei, has been missing for a while? Kan Long nodded. Yesterday, after lunch, he said he wanted to search other rooms for clues. By evening, he hadn't returned. I even called him, but he didn't pick up. The burly woman sneered. Suddenly disappeared? Was it a sudden disappearance, or did you lock him up? Bam! Kan Long suddenly stood up, rolling up his sleeves, and pointed at the woman, shouting, "What did you say? Want to fight?" The burly woman squinted, smirking coldly. "Bring it on. Who's afraid of who? I've beaten plenty of men. One more won't make a difference." Seeing the two about to clash again, Ning Chushui calmly said, "If you want to fight, settle it outside later. Right now, I have something very important to tell you. Consider it a gesture of goodwill from me." Hearing this, the two snorted coldly and reluctantly suppressed their anger. They weren't fools. They knew that what Ning Chushui was about to say could very well be a matter of life and death. First, let me announce that Kan Long is likely telling the truth. Seeing everyone's attention focused on him, Ning Chushui slowly recounted the story of his own disappearance. This Jade Field building, Changlan Fei must have activated some special mechanism or obtained a particular item during the time he vanished, to return to the space-time of over 20 years ago. But we don't know exactly what he encountered in that space-time. Did he tell you anything? Faced with the question, Kan Long was silent for a long time, his eyes flickering between light and shadow. What are you waiting for? We're like fish on a chopping block right now. The killer's methods, lurking in the shadows, are bizarre and unpredictable. We don't even have the slightest ability to fight back. If this continues, sooner or later, we'll all be killed one by one. Wen Fei was growing impatient. The feeling that the other party clearly knew something, yet chose to keep it locked away, refusing to reveal it, was truly infuriating. Every time she watched a horror movie, whenever a character like this appeared, she would grit her teeth and clench her fists. All right. Since this young man is so sincere, I'll be straightforward. Changlan Fei did indeed go to the past of the Jade Field apartment. When he returned, he talked with me for a while that night. But his mind was already unstable by then, as if he had been shocked by something in that past space-time. What he said was also very strange. He kept repeating that he had almost found the killer, that he was just one step away, and then it was all for nothing. After that, he told me to go to room 210 and find the homeowner named Wang Feng to ask her to help retrieve some medical record. He said it was hidden in room 303. But it was already past midnight, and this building was like a haunted house. Who would dare to run around in the corridors? So I ignored him and went to sleep. Hearing this, Han Chong, sitting across from him, became agitated. When I was trapped in room 404, something did happen. It seemed like someone stole something from outside the window. The man and woman were furious and chased after them, but unfortunately, they came back quickly. I think the answer must be in that medical record. If it weren't, the two people in room 404 wouldn't have been so tense. Now, if we can just find that medical record, all the problems will be solved. Half the people there didn't understand what he was talking about, so Han Chong recounted his own experience. After hearing it, everyone felt a chill run down their spines. The killer's ability to control their minds was truly difficult to guard against. Don't panic too much. The killer absolutely cannot control our minds without reason. Otherwise, I wouldn't have survived until now. Our next critical task is to find the medical record that Changlan Fei left behind in the past time-space. Once we find that medical record, we might learn the killer's true identity. A nondescript girl in the crowd raised her hand and said, "But searching for the medical record on our own is bound to be dangerous. After all, the Crimson Door has warned us. Once the killer realizes we know its identity, it will no longer follow the daily hunting limits." It will hunt us down relentlessly. Besides, can you really trust Wang Fang that much? Have you considered the possibility that she might be the killer? Not every ghost guest who enters this door gets a chance to return to the past time-space. With so little information, every move feels like tiptoeing through a minefield. The likelihood of Wang Fang being the killer is very low. For now, she's not a suspect. Barring any surprises, the killer is likely one of the two locals in room 404. Maybe one of them, or both. We need to confirm their identities before reporting to the police. In short, let's talk to Wang Fang later and ask her to keep an eye out for that medical record. If that doesn't work, we'll think of another way. After Ning Chu Shui finished speaking, everyone discussed briefly and then left the room one by one. Not long after Ning Chu Shui and Bai Xiaoxiao returned to their room, there was a knock at the door.
Knock, knock, knock.
The door's unlocked. Click. The door opened, and Han Chong and Wen Fei stepped inside. What's the matter? Ning Chu Shui poured 2 glasses of water, handing one to Bai Xiaoxiao. She glanced out through the door of room 707, confirmed no one was outside, then closed the door and walked over to the sofa to sit down. Mr. Ning, do you feel that Kan Long is suspicious? Ning Chu Shui looked at him with slight surprise, then smiled. I thought you were really clueless. Turns out you were just pretending. Not bad acting, big guy. Encouraged by Ning Chu Shui, Han Chong scratched his head sheepishly. Actually, it's nothing. His slip-ups were just too obvious. I think a lot of people here have already noticed. Wen Fei beside him glanced at everyone guiltily and gave a slight nod. That's right. Han Chong continued. The bloodstains in the kitchen were the heaviest. Logically, when he screamed like that, he must have discovered the corpse in the kitchen cabinet, so the cabinet door should have been open. But when we ran over, it was closed. What's more, the bloodstains in the kitchen were thick and dense. When everyone arrived, he went into the kitchen and opened the cabinet, yet he somehow avoided stepping on every single bloodstain along the way. I don't need to spell out how suspicious that is. You're all smart people. You get it. Ning Chu Shui gave a slight nod. This was indeed a glaring issue. Moreover, he also realized that the muscular woman who had argued with Kan Long earlier was acting deliberately. Her behavior seemed to agitate him, but in reality, it was a form of reassurance. Every action of this woman was based on one premise. She believed Kan Long was truly Kan Long. As this Crimson Door incident had progressed to this point, Ning Chu Shui had come to realize that very few people here were fools. If it weren't for the fact that their ghost artifacts were useless, the killer would never have been able to kill 4 of them in just 3 days. Then let me put it simply. Although I can't tell you the reason, I can assure you of this. The bloodstains in the room could not have been left by just one person. Room 704 must have had 2 deaths. Upon hearing this, Han Chong's eyes widened. Mr. Ning, doesn't that mean the killer is that Kan Long? No, he's the one who turned into Kan Long? Why didn't you say that outright just now? With all of us here, we could have pinned him down on the spot. Ning Chu Shui lifted his head and stared intently at Han Chong. How are you so sure the killer is Kan Long? Han Chong muttered. Isn't it obvious? Room 704 only had 2 people, and now 2 bodies appear. Plus, so many details point to that Kan Long as the killer. At this moment, Bai Xiaoxiao, standing beside Ning Chu Shui, set down her cup and spoke softly. There's a patch on the back of Kan Long's head that's been scratched bald. He has a habit of scratching his head. This action only appears when he's clearly anxious. I still remember everyone's appearance when we first entered this Crimson Door. At that time, the hair on the back of Kan Long's head was very thick. This proves he's been repeatedly doing this action over the past 3 days, many times, and that reflects his psychological state, extreme anxiety. Let me remind you all, the person who was extremely anxious before this was Tai Ko. Not only did he kill his roommate Li Qian, but he also jumped off the building to commit suicide. So, you can deduce from many details that Kan Long killed someone, but you cannot prove that Kan Long is the killer we're looking for. Perhaps he's just a puppet whose subconscious has been manipulated, like Tai Ko. Han Chong listened up to this point, his expression gradually turning serious. Slowly, that seriousness shifted into fear. Mr. Ning's judgment is that there were 2 deaths. That leaves only 7 surviving ghost guests, and according to Sister Bai's speculation, Kan Long is not the killer in disguise. So isn't the killer hiding among the rest of us? Ning Chu Shui gave a slight nod. That's right. The burly woman who argued with Kan Long earlier had the same suspicion as you. She believed that Kan Long was the killer in disguise, deliberately acting that way to lower the killer's guard. But in reality, it wasn't necessary. With the killer's intelligence, they would absolutely never disguise themselves as Kan Long. For it, the risk is far too great. As you said, if we exposed it on the spot and called the police, they'd be at this apartment complex in 3 minutes. Its strongest mind control ability requires special conditions to activate, and no matter how terrifying its direct combat skills are, we have plenty of ghost artifacts on us. As long as the ghost artifacts work, it can't kill anyone within 3 minutes. So I'm leaning more toward this being a trap set by the killer. If we trust Kan Long and go looking for that medical record to read its contents, the killer has either tampered with the record to deceive us or set something up in the room where the record is kept. The moment we figure out who the killer is, it will immediately strike and take control of our minds. On the other hand, if we suspect Kan Long is the killer, verify it, and call the police on the spot, only to find out when the police arrive that Kan Long isn't the killer at all, we'll pay a heavy price. At that point, the police, behind the Crimson Door, will likely take the person who reported it away. I don't need to explain what happens to someone taken away. Both scenarios are extremely disadvantageous for us. Hearing Ning Chu Shui say this, Han Chong and Wen Fei felt a chill run down their spines. They were both shocked that Ning Chu Shui could think through so many details and terrified of the killer lurking in the shadows. If the opponent was truly as Ning Chu Shui described, then this killer was genuinely horrifying. Why would he do that? Wen Fei's mind went blank. It seemed she had been too sheltered in the previous doors. Han Chong beside her spoke in a low voice. The killer is accelerating. We've already seen through 7 or 8 parts of its previous killing method. As long as we don't disturb the items in the room, it's very difficult for it to control our minds. The Crimson Door naturally wouldn't place no restrictions on it. Unlike the versions of the Crimson Door we usually experience, in this one, the longer time drags on, the more disadvantageous it becomes for the killer. Its power isn't as strong as a ghost. The reason it could kill 5 of us is entirely based on misinformation. But as we understand more about its abilities, it becomes harder for it to kill us, so it's forced to use the rules to quickly deal with all of us. Ning Chu Shui nodded slightly. That's right. The killer seems very powerful, but in reality, it's very weak. Otherwise, with its abilities, the person who died today would definitely be Han Chong. After all, Han Chong entered room 404 and is the closest to the truth. Having said that, Ning Chu Shui lifted her head again to look at Han Chong. I have a question. Back in room 404, did you really see Chang Lanfei stealing something from that room? Han Chong frowned, hesitating as he spoke. On this point, Kan Long probably isn't lying. Even though I didn't see Chang Lanfei do it with my own eyes, at the time someone was indeed in that room, stealing a very important item through the window. So important that the man in the white coat and the woman in the patient uniform, both wearing masks, chased them out of room 404. But I don't know if that item was the medical record or not. Truth and falsehood, hard to distinguish. Hearing Han Chong's words, Ning Chu Shui fell into deep thought. At this moment, he could almost completely confirm that one of the 2 people in room 404 was the murderer. He also had some speculations about Wang Fang's identity. But he didn't want to gamble. He still needed more concrete evidence. For example, that medical record. Wait, Mr. Ning, didn't you say the murderer would use that thing to set a trap? If we go looking for that medical record, aren't we walking right into the snare? Besides, how do you know the medical record Kan Long mentioned is real? Ning Chu Shui replied calmly. He will definitely use the real medical record because he wants to kill people. So it must contain information related to the murderer's identity. Only then can we learn its true name. Only then can it break the limit of killing 2 people per day and finish us off quickly. However, seeing Ning Qushui trailing off, Han Chong pressed urgently. However, what? Ning Qushui said, I'll tell you later. I have my own way of handling this. Wen Fei asked, Then, do we need to help with anything? Ning Qushui thought for a moment. Keep an eye on everyone except Kan Long for me. The two nodded slightly. After they left, Bai Xiaoxiao asked, The other corpse, is it the old woman from room 209? Ning Qushui stared at the cup on the tea table. Theoretically, no. That old woman's qi and blood were depleted. She was as thin as a stick. First, she couldn't have bled that much. Second, the color of her blood would be distinctly different from a young person's. Bai Xiaoxiao fell silent, her eyes shifting. Aren't you a veterinarian? How do you know so much about humans? Ning Qushui shrugged, speaking casually. Humans are also animals. Time is short. Let's go find Wang Feng. Bai Xiaoxiao nodded. They arrived at room 210 again. But this time, Ning Qushui didn't return to the previous time-space. Instead, he saw Wang Feng directly in the dilapidated room, thick with dust and cobwebs. The moment they met, Wang Feng said coldly, They've left room 404. Hearing this, Ning Qushui was stunned. They would appear at this time? Wang Feng said flatly, I told you. They've always been there. A flicker passed through Ning Qushui's eyes. The truth is about to be revealed. Do me one last favor, the very last one. Seeing Wang Feng's silence, Ning Qushui continued. Someone stole a copy of the medical record from room 404 and hid it in room 303. Go find that medical record for me and bring it back here. Wang Feng hesitated for a moment. I'll take you there. They're not around right now. Ning Qushui stared deep into Wang Feng's eyes, then gave a slight nod. All right. The room's scenery blurred, and this time, both of them arrived in the past time-space. Bai Xiaoxiao curiously surveyed everything around her. They left room 210 and headed upstairs. Along the way, Ning Qushui asked, Sister Wang, did a man named Chang Lanfei ever come here before? Wang Feng did not deny it. Yes. I warned him not to do anything foolish, but he wouldn't listen. She paused, a hint of regret creeping into her voice. Still, he almost succeeded. He was so close, but in the end, he failed. Hearing Chang Lanfei's story, neither Ning Qushui nor Bai Xiaoxiao felt the slightest contempt or mockery. He was no fool. He was a master of risk-taking. If he had succeeded back then in bringing the medical record out of this time-space, he would have single-handedly conquered this crimson door. A pity. He was just one move short. Within this door, the most terrifying thing about the killer was that it always lurked in the shadows. Once someone died, the psychological pressure on the survivors multiplied, and as more people died, suspicion would begin to fester among them. Unable to unite, they would be picked off one by one. Its raw power might not match a ghost, but its innate intelligence? That was something no ghost could ever compare to. They arrived at room 303. Wang Feng pointed inside. The medical record you're looking for is in there. Ning Qushui and Bai Xiaoxiao did not enter. They simply looked at Wang Feng. I want you to go in and get it. Wang Feng let out a cold laugh at that. I can't touch that medical record. Ning Qushui met her gaze directly. Why? Because you're afraid? Wang Feng stared into Ning Qushui's clear, piercing eyes and suddenly felt a chill of fear creep into her heart. It was the fear of being seen through. Afraid? Me? Afraid? She grew irritable again, muttering under her breath. Ning Qushui pressed on. If you weren't afraid, why did you create the past? You hide here, trying to fix your mistakes, but you don't dare to face them. At that moment, Wang Feng fell silent. In truth, even Bai Xiaoxiao didn't understand why Ning Qushui claimed that the past was something Wang Feng had created. You hoped an outsider could help you, bring the murderer to justice, but your fear gave it a terrifying power. If any of us enters this room today and takes that medical record, we will definitely be killed by it. The medical record is still here, not because it couldn't find it, but because it was deliberately left behind. You might not know it, but you must be able to guess. It wants to use this medical record to gamble with our lives, to finish us off quickly. Wang Feng was speechless. Bai Xiaoxiao didn't understand what Ning Qushui was saying, but Wang Feng could, because she was the one involved. How do you know that the past is related to me? Facing Wang Feng's question, Ning Qushui said, I don't know, I guessed. But your reaction confirmed my speculation. Remember the photo you gave me? At first, we all thought the patient was the man in the white coat. But later, when I went to rescue Han Chong, I saw him in room 404 with my own eyes. The patient gown on the woman was oversized. Even when worn by him, it was still loose. So at that moment I thought, could the woman in the patient uniform in the photo be you? Your figure is plump, very close to the size of that patient gown. Hearing this, Wang Fang's complexion began to change, growing even paler. Ning Chushui stared into her eyes and continued. The old woman in room 209 doesn't remember that Yutian apartment has a landlord at all. You said you were the landlord because the past of this Yutian apartment was created by you, wasn't it? Wang Fang, you are not human. What are you? Like the murderer, are you a monster? As Ning Chushui pressed on with his questions, Wang Fang let out a painful scream, clutching her head. The scenery around them began to warp. Bai Xiaoxiao saw that the situation was dire and quickly tugged at Ning Chushui's sleeve, signaling him to stop provoking Wang Fang. You're not wrong. After a long silence, Wang Fang finally spoke. Her voice was somewhat weak. When the scenery around them returned to normal, Wang Fang had changed into a patient's uniform. It was the same one the woman in the photo wore, and it fit perfectly. I am that patient. I am the monster. Tears streamed down Wang Fang's plump face. She covered her face as if recalling something, sobbing uncontrollably. I am a monster. I killed my own daughter. I killed her. Ning Chushui frowned. You are not the murderer, nor the mastermind behind all of this. I want to know who the woman in that photograph is. Tell me. Right now, only we can help you. Do you want to be trapped in this bizarre past again, reliving the nightmare over and over? Wang Fang did not answer Ning Chushui. She simply walked step by step into room 303, which was shrouded in strange dreamlike colors. Before long, Wang Fang emerged. In her hand, she held a medical record. Her face was pale, drained of all vitality. The lively spark of a human being had vanished from her features. I won't read this, Ning Chushui said, narrowing his eyes. I want you to tell me yourself. Wang Fang's hands trembled. Why? Ning Chushui smiled. Because I don't trust it, but I trust you. Wang Fang looked up at Ning Chushui. Her body was undergoing some extremely bizarre changes, flickering between blurry and clear, swelling and shrinking. Years ago, I don't remember clearly. When I was pregnant, my husband died in a car accident. After that, I gave birth to a baby girl, but I developed postpartum depression. For my daughter's sake, I actively sought treatment and took the medication the doctor prescribed, but my condition didn't improve. Instead, new problems emerged. That's when it appeared. I started to realize something was wrong, because after it showed up, my memory began to fragment. I would often be in one place and suddenly find myself somewhere else. At the time, I felt an unprecedented fear because my blackouts were getting longer. At first, it was just an hour or two, then it stretched into a day or two. It felt like I was slowly disappearing, and I was completely powerless to stop it. Later, I hid this from my treating doctor and went to a different psychiatric hospital for a checkup. The doctor there told me I had dissociative identity disorder, that there was another personality inside me, and because of the medication and external influences, that personality was developing rapidly. Since memories between different personalities aren't shared, that's why I was losing time. That doctor warned me that I needed to end my treatment as soon as possible, because the doctor treating me might be problematic. Once the other personality inside me grew strong enough that I couldn't resist it anymore, it would completely replace me. As she said this, Wang Fang suddenly let out a blood-curdling scream. The changes in her body became more and more pronounced, as if a gaunt figure was trying to claw its way out of her. Ning Chushui immediately took off the jacket wrapped around his arm, then accepted the medical record from Wang Fang's hand, asking, "Do you know why that doctor did this?" He received no answer, because Wang Fang's face was slowly transforming into another woman's, a woman with twisted features and a face full of resentment. Wang Fang's voice was already horribly unstable. Seeing that she couldn't get the last few words out, Ning Shui didn't hesitate any longer. She immediately grabbed Bai Xiaoxiao and ran toward room 210. A blood-curdling scream erupted behind them. Ning Chu Shui and Bai Xiaoxiao had no idea what was happening to Wang Feng, but they had no time to look back. They just kept running straight into room 210. As they entered the room, the scene before them blurred. Then, room 210 became utterly dilapidated. Going back, Ning Chu Shui didn't stop for a second. She ran straight up to the 7th floor. Chu Shui, what are you going to do? We can't look at this medical record, but Conlong can. He's about to die anyway. Might as well do us a favor. Hearing this, Bai Xiaoxiao understood immediately. Ning Chu Shui planned to use Conlong as a scapegoat. According to the killer's design, once a prop was imbued with resentment, the first person to touch it would be doomed. But this effect only worked once. After the first person touched it, the prop would be consumed, and anyone else who touched it afterward would be safe. They quickly arrived at Conlong's room and knocked on the door. The man's eyes were bloodshot, completely devoid of humanity. His hand gripped a sharp knife, and he was relentlessly slicing into his own flesh. Blood was everywhere. Not only did Conlong show no sign of pain, but he also laughed maniacally at the two of them. The first floor of this building has 9 rooms, 7 floors in total. That's 63 rooms.
Perfect. Perfect. I want to fill them all. Fill them all.
Ning Chu Shui ignored his madness and directly handed him the object wrapped in clothing. Take it. Conlong froze. Instinctively, he reached out and took what Ning Chu Shui offered. But the moment he touched it, a horrifying scene manifested on his body. Ning Chu Shui and Bai Xiaoxiao, standing in front of him, saw a pair of hands suddenly appear from behind Conlong, wrapping tightly around him. These hands were extremely thin and black. What made their hair stand on end was that the hands were wearing a patient gown that was clearly a size too big. Then Conlong let out a scream of unbearable agony.
Get out! Get out of my head! Get out! It hurts! Ah!
Ning Chu Shui said, Xiao Xiao, call the police. Hearing this, Bai Xiaoxiao immediately dialed the police. After doing this, Bai Xiaoxiao watched as Ning Chu Shui wrapped the medical record in clothing again and held it in her hand, but she showed no intention of looking at it. A clever move, Bai Xiaoxiao thought to herself. She could understand why Ning Chu Shui did this, but if it were her, she probably would have already looked. Conlong's screams quickly ended. A gaunt woman in a patient gown, wearing a mask, stood before Ning Chu Shui. Her gaze was utterly venomous. You can't kill me. Ning Chu Shui's eyes held a hint of provocation. I don't know your identity, and you cannot tell me. If you could directly tell us who you are, you wouldn't have gone to the trouble of setting up such a dangerous game, would you? The woman in the patient gown seemed to snap. She suddenly grabbed Ning Chu Shui by the collar and lifted him up, her voice cold as ice. You do know my identity. You called the police. Ning Chu Shui let out a cold laugh. I don't know who you are. I never read that medical record. As for calling the police, I only did it because I sensed danger. The woman's voice grew hoarser, more unhinged, as if she were about to tear Ning Chu Shui apart limb by limb. You know. Ning Chu Shui simply shook his head. I don't know. If you can confirm that I know your identity, then kill me right now. I won't fight back. The woman in the patient gown screamed, her eyes straining as if they might split. Her gaze was venomous, almost tangible with hatred. But in the end, she did not strike. They remained locked in this standoff until the police arrived. The woman vanished into the shadows, seething with unwillingness. What's going on? Who called the police? I don't know. Did the killer show up? That fast? The commotion from the police was so loud that it roused the others from their rooms. They stumbled out, dazed, staring toward Conlong's room. He was still holding the knife, poised to harm himself, but Ning Chu Shui had already kicked it away. Why did you call the police? 6 police officers stood at the door, clad in pale blue uniforms. Their skin was deathly white, veins starkly visible. They exuded an overwhelming sense of oppression. The last time Ning Chu Shui had seen them was in the Deliver News Fuban. I called the police. There's a killer on this floor. Let me see. Who is the killer? Right in front of the police, Ning Chu Shui opened the medical record. Seeing this, Bai Xiaoxiao's eyes went wide. The killer clearly understood now. Ning Chu Shui had deliberately waited until the police arrived to read this thing. No matter how powerful the killer was, they couldn't commit murder right in front of the police. No wonder the killer had just lost her mind. This tactic was utterly shameless. After examining the medical record, Ning Shui grew even more certain of his suspicions. He led the police directly to room 209 and arrested the old woman inside. The frail old woman trembled violently as she was taken, her face a mask of terror. "What are you doing? Why are you arresting me?" "Why?" Her eyes were clouded, her movements stiff and jerky. She looked nothing like a murderer. "So this old lady really is the killer? She's the only local in the building. You could figure that out with your gut, right? Shh, Detective Conan, huh? A few days ago, why didn't I see you report that person to the police?" "Ha ha. I was just being cautious." As the argument raged on, Ning Shui opened the door to room 210 and said to the 6 officers, "Officers, that old woman is just the killer's corpse. The other half is in this room." The moment Ning Shui's words landed, the old woman, who had been thrashing wildly, froze. Her head snapped up, her eyes locking onto him with a gaze brimming with hatred and madness, but the handcuffs were already on her. She could do nothing. "You two, stay here," the police captain ordered 2 of his men before leading the other 3 into room 210 with Ning Shui. As the light shifted, everyone was once again pulled back into the past. This was Wang Fang's private world. If Wang Fang did not open her heart, no one from the outside could ever enter. But this time, as they stepped inside, everything around them was steeped in a thick, suffocating filth. Ning Shui barely glanced at it before a wave of dizziness hit him. Suddenly, a pale, ice-cold hand reached out from behind. One of the officers caught him, steadying him. He snapped back to his senses. Startled, he looked at the officer, hesitated for a moment, then asked, "Officer, have any of your colleagues died in the line of duty recently?" The police captain's voice was cold. "Captain Wang met with misfortune while handling a murder case. The killer is still at large." He paused, then added, "It was the case of the little girl who killed her younger brother. You were there when the report was made." Ning Shui's entire body trembled. "You know me?" The police captain's voice remained cold, not out of personal will, but from a kind of inhuman indifference. "The little girl confessed everything. Because you helped the 9th police station solve the case, we kept some of your personal information on file." Hearing this, Ning Shui confirmed a suspicion he had held for some time, that the area beyond the Crimson Door was connected. It was very possible that the world beyond the Crimson Door and their own outside world were one and the same. But what was this 9th the captain mentioned? The 9th police station? The other party was clearly hiding something. That little girl, her name is Li Yue, right? I still remember her name. What happened to her afterward? The police captain replied, "According to regulations, we have punished her, but not severely. The root of the case lies with her parents. Furthermore, her parents attacked the police. So we plan to wait until Li Yue's parents are captured before delivering the final judgment on them." He paused, then added, "For now, she is living in the Sunshine Orphanage." Hearing this, Ning Shui felt a measure of relief. Strictly speaking, that little girl had saved his life. If she had truly died at her parents' hands because she helped them, he would have carried that guilt forever. They arrived at room 404. Ning Shui knocked. Knock, knock, knock. No answer came from inside. The police officer beside him frowned, let out a cold snort, and signaled for Ning Shui to step aside. He moved to the side, and the officer drew the silver pistol from his holster, aimed at the lock, and fired. Bang! The gunshot rang out, and the lock clattered to the floor. A dark figure burst out. Swoosh! Thud! The police captain, no amateur, kicked the shadow into the wall without even looking, the force so immense it nearly cracked the masonry. And mind you, this was no ordinary wall. It was thick with the accumulated resentment of Wang Fang. Oh! The shadow let out a pained groan. As Ning Shui's eyes adjusted, he realized this shadow was the woman in the patient gown who had yet to appear. It's her. Ning Shui pointed at her. The woman in the patient gown tried to flee, but the next scene left Ning Shui frozen in shock. All 4 police officers drew their pistols simultaneously, unleashing a relentless barrage at the shadow. Though the firing rate of a pistol isn't fast, 4 guns firing at once was a different story.
Bang, 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 bang.
In the span of just 5 seconds, the woman in the patient gown was riddled with bullets. However, these shots were aimed at non-lethal areas, only meant to cripple her ability to escape. Quickly, she was handcuffed. She howled and thrashed wildly, but it was futile.
Clatter, clatter.
Just then, another set of footsteps echoed from inside the room. A male doctor in a white coat emerged, hands raised, his expression calm. "Don't shoot me. I'm not the killer." Ning Chu Shui said, "He is indeed the killer." The male doctor's face stiffened.
Bang, bang, bang. Bang, bang, bang. Ah!
He collapsed to the ground, bloodied and trembling. After subduing the two, the police captain searched the room, finding a collection of knives, tools, and various psychiatric medications. These items belonged to Wang Fang's memory. Logically, no one else could take them. But this was behind the crimson door, and the abilities of these officers far exceeded his imagination. They produced a special transparent bag, placed all the items inside, and sealed it with a talisman. After this, these objects from Wang Fang's memory could indeed be carried away. "Let's go," the police captain said. They returned to room 210. Just as Ning Chu Shui was about to step his last foot into room 210, a familiar voice sounded behind him. "Thank you." Ning Chu Shui turned around. It was Wang Fang. She had remembered everything. Tears streamed down her cheeks. That fragment of memory was a burden she could no longer bear. As a wife, she had lost her beloved husband. As a mother, she had killed her own daughter with her own hands. As a patient, she had been destroyed by her own doctor. "I still have one question," Ning Chu Shui said. "That doctor went through immense trouble to create another personality inside you, then lured it into killing your daughter, and finally brought you to room 404 of the Jade Field Apartments, turning you into the terrifying murderer of that building. He did all of this, so many things, for what reason exactly?" Wang Fang struggled to force 2 words from her throat. "To create a book." The moment she spoke, Ning Chu Shui was jolted violently, frozen in place. "Create a book!" He wanted to ask more, but Wang Fang's figure began to fade. Everything around him started to blur. Seeing this, Ning Chu Shui hesitated no longer. He pushed open the door and stepped directly into room 210. Any later, he feared he would vanish along with Wang Fang's resentment. Back in the original time-space, the others had mostly dispersed, leaving only Bai Xiaoxiao. "They've already gone back?" Ning Chu Shui asked. Bai Xiaoxiao hummed in affirmation. She pointed outside the window. The mist had already covered everything. The mission was over. "So, that old woman was Wang Fang?" Bai Xiaoxiao asked. Ning Chu Shui shook his head, pulling out the photo Wang Fang had given them earlier. She was only Wang Fang's physical shell. The real Wang Fang died in the past. That doctor treated Wang Fang as a vessel, using her body to nurture a new personality, the gaunt woman in the photo, wearing that oversized hospital gown. In real life, different personalities often cause some changes in the body, but those changes are limited by the objective physical form, so they're very restricted. But behind the crimson door, there aren't as many limitations. As long as that personality is a monster, it can transform into any shape it desires. Bai Xiaoxiao stared intently at the woman in the photo. For some reason, she found her especially unsettling, especially those eyes which gave the constant feeling of being alive, as if someone were always lurking inside the photograph. Why did that doctor do all this? To create a book, Ning Chu Shui replied, equally brief. Red Bean had told him before that the method of forging a book was extremely cruel, but the specific process was known only to those of Luosheng men. So then, were the people of Luosheng men connected to certain forces behind the Crimson Door world? This thought suddenly surfaced in his mind, startling Ning Chu Shui. Because in his understanding, the world behind the Crimson Door was utterly unpredictable, a place representing danger and death. But today, another event occurred that shook his worldview to some degree. That was, the world behind the Crimson Door was not a collection of scattered instances, but a single whole. It was just filled with unimaginable dangers and brutality. The police officer from the station could even remember him clearly. Before leaving, Ning Chu Shui deliberately went into room 404 to check. He discovered the place was filled with various psychiatric medications and many bizarre paintings, along with all sorts of tools used for killing and torturing people. The curtains were drawn tight, blocking out all sunlight. It was hard to imagine what terrible things Wang Feng had endured in this room 404 over 20 years ago. At that moment, Ning Shui finally understood a sliver of what Red Bean meant when she said, "The process of making the book is extremely cruel." Leaving Yuqian Apartments, they walked downstairs. The old yellow dog barked wildly at them. Woof, woof, woof! Ning Shui looked at it, then suddenly walked over to the gatekeeper old man's dilapidated shack and knocked on the door. Knock, knock, knock! The old man opened the door. A wrinkled face peered out from behind it. Who are you looking for? You, Ning Shui said. Then, before the old man's stunned eyes, he stabbed him with a pair of scissors. This time, fast and precise, straight into the throat. Feeling the cold steel pierce his neck, the old man's eyes bulged wide. To be precise, you're not the murderer. At least, not the direct murderer. But I can't just let you off. After all, you wanted to kill me, didn't you, Dr. Liu? The old man's eyes bulged, but he couldn't speak. I'm not sure if you're human or monster, so I can only take the initiative and use this ghost artifact on you. Ning Shui muttered. As he spoke, he reached out and tore open the old man's outer coat, discovering a white lab coat underneath. How many years have you been wearing this? Still haven't taken it off. That's right, you wouldn't dare. After all, it's the only way for Wang Feng's evil personality to tell you apart. The old man's mouth gaped open, blood bubbling from his lips. Whether you're human or monster, as long as you're not a ghost, this stab is enough to kill you. Monsters and ghosts are different. Back in Chiyu village, the witch was a monster. Though she was very powerful, and ordinary people couldn't defeat her, she was still flesh and blood. She could be killed. When Ning Shui pulled the scissors out, the old man convulsed on the ground, blood spurting from his neck. He tried to cover the wound with his hands, but it was useless. His eyes, filled with despair and unwillingness, watched Ning Shui and Bai Xiaoxiao step onto a bus that emerged from the fog, and together they vanished into the thick mist. Returning to the ghost dwelling, Ning Shui realized he had successfully brought out both the medical record and the photograph. Both items were clearly ghost artifacts. He handed the photograph to Bai Xiaoxiao, but she refused to take it. You cleared this door, so how could I possibly take the ghost artifact? She winked at Ning Shui with a smile. Besides, I already have plenty of ghost artifacts. You keep it. Seeing her say that, Ning Shui kept the ghost artifact for himself. The two of them got off the bus together. Junlu Yuan and Tianxun were waiting at the entrance. Seeing them return safely, smiles spread across their faces. I told you, with Brother Shui and Sister Bai's skills, how could anything go wrong? Tianxun said, chin raised, to Junlu Yuan beside him. Junlu Yuan merely glanced at the small hand gripping his clothes and smiled without a word. Tianxun seemed to realize this too, hastily letting go of the fabric he was clutching, snorted, and stepped forward to greet them. Sister Bai, Brother Shui, the two were already accustomed to Tianxun's enthusiasm, and they affectionately ruffled his hair. Back at the ghost dwelling, they sat in the main hall as usual, listening to the two recount what happened behind the crimson door. Then, Ning Shui took out the medical record, which detailed all the treatment methods that the psychologist, Dr. Liu Ke, had performed on the patient, Wang Feng. Some of the content sent chills down the spines of Tianxun and Junlu Yuan. Calling it treatment was an understatement. It was more like brainwashing and insane torture. No wonder Wang Feng did those terrifying things. An ordinary person, subjected to that kind of torment and brainwashing, would have broken down long ago. The four of them waited by the warm fireplace until midnight, then went to their respective rooms to rest. The next day, Ning Shui had breakfast, said goodbye to everyone, and boarded a bus back to the world outside the mist. With the help of Field Mouse, he found Wen Fei. She was in Huangni City, right next to Shiliu City. The two cities were not far apart. Ning Shui drove, and in less than an hour he arrived in Huangni City. After entering the city, he quickly went to the meeting point. Wen Fei was wearing a loose t-shirt, dragging the burly Han Chong beside her. Compared to inside the crimson door, the two seemed much more affectionate outside. Seeing Ning Chu Shui, Wenfei asked curiously, "Hey, Sister Bai didn't come with you?" Ning Chu Shui said, I came alone today." Wenfei nodded, glanced around, and then lowered her voice. "Come eat with us first, walk around the streets for a bit, then we'll go to my place." It was clear that Wenfei knew quite a bit and was being very cautious. Since Field Mouse had already investigated Wenfei, Ning Chu Shui knew she wasn't a member of Luo Sheng Men, so he followed her for a long while. It wasn't until the afternoon that they finally returned to Wenfei's home together. An ordinary apartment in a residential complex. After entering the door, Wenfei finally breathed a sigh of relief. "Make yourself at home. I'll go get the letter." Wenfei quickly brought the letter. When he held this letter, Ning Chu Shui could clearly feel that its structure was identical to the 3 letters he had received before. "Can I see the contents inside?" Wenfei shook her head. "No. To be honest with you, this letter isn't mine. It belonged to an elder from the ghost dwelling. Before he died, he entrusted it to me. At the time, I actually didn't want to accept it, because it was too dangerous. But that old man had done me a great kindness, and I couldn't refuse, so I hid this letter in my house." Wenfei's words sounded like an excuse, but Ning Chu Shui trusted her quite a bit. At the very least, in the Crimson Door instance, she had genuinely cared about Han Chong's life and death, even risking her own life to find her boyfriend. This proves to some extent that she was a woman of deep feeling. That senior seemed to have foreseen that he would be killed, so he had already written his will. In it, he introduced a great deal about the letter. As he spoke, Wenfei took a will from a hidden corner beneath the TV cabinet and handed it to Ning Chu Shui. That spot was crafted with great intricacy. If not opened, it looked exactly like the flat surface of the other cabinet compartments, revealing no trace at all. "Earlier, I told you not to read the contents of the letter because it doesn't belong to you." After Wenfei finished speaking, Ning Chu Shui nodded lightly. Han Chong, standing nearby, asked curiously, "Brother Shui, do you know about the letter?" Ning Chu Shui smiled faintly. "Isn't it obvious? You're not the first people I've met who have a letter." Han Chong nodded slightly, letting out a soft sigh of relief, as if a burden had been lifted. "If that's the case, then I'm relieved. You must know how dangerous this letter is. Lately, I've vaguely felt someone watching Shuang Shuang. I was torn between handing this letter over to someone else to handle, or keeping it for Shuang Shuang and me to use when we pass through the 7th door. Since Shuang Shuang has agreed with you, I won't say anything more. Take this letter with you. But you must be careful." Ning Chu Shui waved his hand dismissively. "Don't worry, I know what I'm doing." After bidding farewell to the two, Ning Chu Shui quickly drove back to Shilyu City. On the way, he made detours through several observation points in the city, confirming no one was tailing him before returning home. Opening the will, it detailed many specifics about the letter that Ning Chu Shui had never known before. It turned out that the mysterious, nameless letters they received were divided into 2 types. The most common type was the human letter. The human letter contained more or less hints related to survival methods behind the Crimson Door. They were crucial for their passage through the Crimson Door. Especially from the 7th door of the Crimson Door onward, having or not having a letter in hand were entirely different matters. Ning Yu Shui had deeply felt this before. After all, by the 7th door of the Crimson Door or later, they could only carry 1 ghost artifact, and that ghost artifact had only 1 chance to activate. It could be said that the margin for error was extremely low. If at that moment they had a letter that could be brought behind the door, the survival rate would increase dramatically. Of course, the letter was not omnipotent. The further they went, the fewer hints the human letter provided. However, if conditions allowed, some people could carry up to 3 human letters into the Crimson Door. In this way, they could receive more survival hints, and more detailed ones at that. But the letter was a rare thing. Even the human letter was hard to come by. Therefore, the people of Luo Sheng Men, especially those who knew the secrets of the letter, would not easily use them in the early doors. They would stockpile human letters, saving them for the more difficult Crimson Doors ahead. For example, Tang Ren, whom Ning Chu Shui had encountered earlier. Unlike other ghost dwellings, the reason Luo Sheng Men has so many survivors who have passed through the 7th and 8th doors of the Crimson Door is that they possess a number of human scripts, specifically used to deal with such doors. Interestingly, this testament mentions that, under normal circumstances, no one else can view a person's human script, even if the owner of that script has died. If the owner of the script dies and someone else tries to view it, the script will immediately lose its effect, leaving no useful information behind. However, through a special processing method, this script can be transferred to a new owner. Yet, he himself was unclear about the method and principles of crafting these scripts. The senior who wrote the testament only mentioned that only a certain mental hospital within the Crimson Door could produce the scripts. He knew no further details. Besides the human script, there is another type of script called the heavenly script. This script is made from human skin. Unlike the function of the human script, the heavenly script is usually engraved with many abstract, incomprehensible drawings or sayings. Anyone can observe the heavenly script. However, only those who have experienced at least one 7th door have an extremely slim chance of obtaining a heavenly script. There are many speculations and debates about the content of the heavenly script. Some optimists believe the content records the truth about the end of the mist. Others think it is a clue to the 9th door. There are too many theories. No one knows which one is correct. But without a doubt, based on the function of the human script, the heavenly script must record extremely important information. Therefore, those who obtain a heavenly script are often in great danger. After all, with an organization like Luo Sheng Men backing it, they would kill ruthlessly to steal the script. The content of the testament basically recorded only these things. No more, no less, all of it vital information. Ningqiu Shuai stared at the testament, unable to calm down for a long time. Scripts are crafted behind the Crimson Door. Dr. Liu knows how to craft them. Does that mean the mental hospital behind him is the very place mentioned in the script for crafting them? But why would they help Luo Sheng Men craft the scripts? What connection do the two sides have? Could it be? Suddenly, a terrifying thought flashed through Ningqiu Shui's mind. If people from outside the Crimson Door can somehow stay inside it, then does that mean the people from the other side can also come to the outside world somehow? Ha! As this thought appeared, Ningqiu Shui immediately drew a sharp, cold breath. If that were truly the case, then it would be terrifying. After all, who knows how many demons and monsters lurk inside the Crimson Door? If these things came to the real world, he couldn't imagine what horrors would unfold. This thought, once it appeared in Ningqiu Shui's mind, was difficult to erase. He wanted to tell the washing machine about what happened inside the Crimson Door. But the current problem was, those who had never been cursed by the Crimson Door simply could not remember anything related to it, unless they were also owners of the book. Just like Junlu Yuan. Everything seemed to hit a dead end. The ghosts and monsters behind the Crimson Door cannot just come out as they please. If they could, the outside world would have been in chaos long ago. Ningqiu Shui quickly regained his composure. Clearly, there had to be a balance between the inside and outside of the Crimson Door. Whether outsiders wanted to enter, or the people inside wanted to leave, they all had to abide by certain terms. Still, he felt a lingering unease. So Ningqiu Shui contacted Bai Xiaoxiao and went to the Midixiang estate. "What's wrong, Qiu Shui? You look worried. It's rare to see you like this." Bai Xiaoxiao poured Ningqiu Shui a cup of green tea and sat down across from him. "Xiaoxiao, can you contact Uncle Yan? I have something very important to tell him." Seeing the serious expression on Ningqiu Shui's face, Bai Xiaoxiao didn't ask any further questions. She directly called Liang Yan. They were lucky. Most of the time, Liang Yan was inside the Crimson Door, either taking on orders or on his way to take one. It seemed that after the last incident with the 7th Crimson Door, Liang Yan was no longer rushing to the 9th Crimson Door to die. Instead, he was seriously contemplating the path his friend had taken. Having moved past the stage of worrying about trivial matters, he now realized more and more clearly that Meng was very likely still alive, staying on the other side of the Crimson Door. That night, warm lamplight filled Bai Xiaoxiao's large villa. 4 people sat in the living room. Meng Jun was also there. Ning Shui recounted his findings and the events of the day in detail. All 3 of them fell silent after listening. A long moment passed. If what you say is true, that the world behind the Crimson Door is a unified whole, then many of our predecessors have already speculated about this. Meng also talked to me about it before he left. Liang Yan suddenly spoke, his tone carrying a hint of gravity. But things aren't that bad. The rules are always fair to everyone. For the people inside the Crimson Door to come out, it's no simple matter. Even if they do manage to get out, there will definitely be many restrictions. Otherwise, this country, even the entire world, would have fallen into chaos long ago. There's no need to worry too much. After Liang Yan finished speaking, Bai Xiaoxiao took a sip of her tea. Why would the people inside the door bother to create letters for Luo Shengmen? From our experiences in the previous door, creating a letter demands a tremendous price. The people and ghosts inside the door are no fools. They wouldn't waste effort for nothing, so there must be a deal at play here. Think carefully. For those ghosts inside the door, what could be more tempting than the outside world? Bai Xiaoxiao finished speaking, and Liang Yan fell into deep thought. I know you want to stop Luo Shengmen, but Luo Shengmen isn't just some ordinary organization. Dealing with them is no easy task. At least, with Ghost Dwelling's current strength, we're far from ready. If Mang were still here, we might stand a chance. But now that Mang is gone, we don't even have the ability to face them head-on. Ning Shui asked, Not even in the outside world? Liang Yan sighed. Do you know what the most terrifying thing about Luo Shengmen is? It's that they wield terrifying dominance in the outside world too. This lets them keep collecting those letters, stockpiling them for the 7th door. It dramatically boosts their survival rate, and it's precisely because of those letters that they dare to take orders at the 7th door. Their success rate in protecting the order's owner exceeds 50%. Ning Shui was sharp. The moment Liang Yan said this, he understood. In the real world, the more talented and powerful people are, the more they fear death. Once they're chosen by the Crimson Door, they'll frantically seek help and protection. And who can protect them best? Naturally, it's Luo Shengmen, the top of the rankings. In truth, for a behemoth like Luo Shengmen, ordinary money barely catches their eye. What they want is power. You want their protection? Fine, then join them. That's exactly why Luo Shengmen grows stronger and more terrifying by the day. The wealth and influence they've amassed over decades, no other ghost dwelling can easily touch it. At this point, Meng Jun rarely spoke up. Quite a few people at the top are in cahoots with Luo Shengmen. That's also why they can kill and steal letters on this land without worrying about consequences. Because there's always someone ready to clean up after them. When Meng Jun said these words, his tone was ice cold. In just a few short sentences, Ning Shui felt the sheer enormity of Luo Shengmen. Their ghost dwelling did have no shortage of capable people, but to go up against such a giant was clearly not enough. Uncle Yan, do you all know who rules Luo Shengmen? Ning Shui asked. Liang Yan thought for a moment. If you mean the original founder, we've heard a little. He was an incredibly formidable man. They say he single-handedly passed through the 9th Crimson Door and even obtained the final fragment, entering the end of the mist. Ning Shui was startled at the news. You're going into the 9th Crimson Door alone? Liang Yan nodded. That's the rumor anyway. After he left, Luo Shengmen supposedly split into several factions, cooperating and competing with each other. In short, it's chaos in there, and it's been that way for years. If that's the case, then we're not without a chance. Divide and conquer, internal strife, betrayal, maybe we can make it work. After hearing Ning Shui finish speaking, Liang Yan smiled in surprise. You've been reading military strategy, have you? My Shifu taught me a little, just the basics. Ning Shui paused, then added, If anyone knows someone connected to Luo Shengmen, they can contact me. I want to talk to them. Everyone nodded. Bai Xiaoxiao frowned. Isn't that too risky? Ning Shui smiled. I won't act personally. Besides, this plan will take a long time. I'm always careful. I won't do anything rash. Hearing this, Bai Xiaoxiao said nothing more. She understood Ning Shui. He wouldn't willingly do things without certainty. If you need any help, just tell me anytime. She paused, then added, I have a certain underground network in Shiliu City. Ning Shui was a little surprised, but only for a moment. Anyone capable of surviving in Midi Xiang was certainly no ordinary person. A few months passed. Ning Shui continued to clear doors as usual, but he never encountered a crimson door with a jigsaw piece. His focus shifted to matters concerning Luo Sheng men, and his frequency of entering doors was no longer as high as before. Notably, after Bai Xiaoxiao cleared her 6th crimson door, their ghost dwelling gained 6 new members. 1 person died in the first door. 3 died in the next 2 doors. In the end, only 2 survivors remained. The first was named Yun Shang, a gentle, beautiful woman with a soft smile always on her face. She kept a certain distance from everyone, making her hard to read. The other was named Yu Jiang, a simple, honest man. His favorite pastime was fishing, and he often added more big fish to the pond in the ghost dwelling's backyard. One day, Feng returned to the ghost dwelling and saw those plump fish. What more could he ask for? The meals at the ghost dwelling immediately improved. Damn it! Where are my fish? One day, Yu Jiang brought new fish back to the ghost dwelling, eager to enjoy his harvest again, only to find more than half the fish in the pond had vanished. They drowned, but we gave them a grand funeral. They all passed peacefully. Jun Luyuan said, picking his teeth with a fishbone. Yu Jiang stared at the fishbone in Jun Luyuan's hand and let out a miserable roar. Ah! You guys ate the fish without calling me? Jun Luyuan gave an awkward smile. Next time. Definitely next time. After the idle chatter, the happy, relaxing time quickly came to an end. Ning Shui and Big Beard's 4th door had arrived. Winter arrived silently, carried in on the snow. Inside the ghost dwelling, Ning Shui lay on his side on the bed, rereading the letter from the senior of Wenfei's ghost dwelling. He discovered a piece of information he had previously overlooked. The recipient of the heavenly book had, at the very least, passed through the 7th crimson door once. Didn't this mean that person named Red Bean had also passed through the 7th crimson door? Speaking of Red Bean, he hadn't contacted Ning Shui proactively recently. He had no idea what he was doing, or if he was even alive or dead. As the 4th crimson door for the 2 of them approached, Ning Shui rarely saw Big Beard staying in the ghost dwelling for a few days. Everyone had gathered at the ghost dwelling because of his unusual silence. At mealtime, he was busy to the point of forgetting the world around him. Tianjin seemed to have a special obsession with eating, frantically following Big Beard into the kitchen, trying to learn in order to become the disciple and starve the master. But the path of culinary arts was truly arduous. In the end, his handsome face became smudged, and he only managed to learn 1 dish, scrambled eggs with tomatoes. Tianjin, after you eat, go wash the dishes. I'll teach you how to cook another time. Upon hearing this, Tianjin's eyes lit up immediately. Yes, sir. Mission guaranteed. After eating, the 2 went straight upstairs. Brother Shui, Big Beard, be careful. Jun Luyuan shouted from downstairs. Ning Shui looked down and saw a hint of worry in everyone's eyes. Whether it was the front doors or the back doors, they were all terrifying ghosts. Once you step inside, there is always a risk of death. After living together for so long, their feelings for each other had grown deeper, so naturally they worried about their safety. Don't worry. Ning Shui smiled at them. They went up to the 3rd floor. On the crimson door, a few lines of blood-red text appeared. Mission: survive until the 5th day at Dengying Temple, and find a way to leave the temple. Note: do not go out the door at night. Is it really that simple? Li Renfeng was startled, seeming a bit surprised. Ning Shui beside him said, After all, it's only the 4th door. There definitely won't be too many hints. Li Renfeng was taken aback. That's right. As soon as he finished speaking, the crimson door was pushed open by a ghostly hand. The 2 of them saw darkness before their eyes, then lost consciousness. When he woke up, Ning Shui found himself at the entrance of a temple. Looking around, the temple sat silently deep within the mountains. Although there was a path leading to the outside world, it was a dirt road with no traces of cartwheels. Clearly, this place was rarely visited, and strangers seldom came. Thick black clouds hung overhead, blocking the sunlight. The dense fog in the mountains only added to the mystery of the temple before him. Outside the temple gate, a young monk in a gray cloth robe was bowing his head, sweeping the fallen leaves. His expression was calm, as if he was completely oblivious to the people outside the gate. Ningqiu Shui quickly found Liu Renfeng. He was standing in front of the temple's lantern, looking up at the weathered signboard, his expression very serious. "What's wrong, Big Beard?" Ningqiu Shui silently approached Liu Renfeng, and the moment he spoke, he startled him. "Good heavens, Xiao Ge, you move without a sound. Did you find something?" Liu Renfeng's expression turned strange. "Not exactly a discovery, but I keep feeling this place is eerie, as if there are countless eyes in the temple staring right at us." As he spoke, he too gazed toward the mist, peering into the temple's depths. Though the fog wasn't thick, beyond a few dozen meters, it completely swallowed a person's sight. When the others had also found their teammates and gathered together at the temple gate, the sweeping little monk finally lifted his head. A warm smile bloomed on his face, gentle as a spring breeze, his expression serene. "Dear patrons, have you come to visit the temple? Please wait a moment. I'll go inform the abbot." With that, the little monk pressed his palms together, bowed to everyone, and turned to walk inside. "I've been through so many crimson doors, but this is the first time I've seen a mission set in a temple." A man with a short, blunt haircut and a cocky expression crossed his arms over his chest. "Besides, aren't temples supposed to be places ghosts fear? Looks like these are a bunch of fake monks. Something's definitely wrong." Beside him, a heavy-set man in a neatly pressed suit wore a kind smile. "Old Chai, keep your voice down. What if they hear us? We'll be stuck here for a few days after all." The man called Old Chai rolled his eyes and sneered. "What do I have to be afraid of?" About 5 minutes later, the little monk emerged with an elderly monk. The old monk swept his gaze over the 8 people present, and a delighted smile immediately spread across his face. "Good, good, good. You patrons must be here to visit the temple, yes?" Dungying Temple is a famous monastery for miles around. They say sincere prayers here are always answered. Rest assured, stay for a few days, and I believe you will gain something. Having said that, he led everyone inside. "Damn it, Xiaoge, don't you think that old monk's smile is a bit creepy?" Liu Renfeng shuddered, whispering into Ningqiu Shui's ear. The latter raised his index finger to his lips, signaling him not to speak recklessly at this moment. As everyone walked deeper into the temple, after a few dozen steps, Ningqiu Shui turned back to look at the temple gate. He saw the massive doors slowly closing. Boom! When the gates shut, everyone heard the sound. They turned their heads to look back. The leading old monk smiled and said to them, "Dear patrons, don't be alarmed. This is a deep mountain. A sudden gust of wind is nothing unusual. We have prepared lodging for you here. Fahua, for the next few days, you will take care of these patrons." The little monk beside him nodded gently. "Yes, Shifu. If you enjoyed this story, please hit the like button and subscribe to support me.